Okay, so get this. Mexico's rolling out a new app, and it's meant for migrants in the U.S. And it's specifically for those who might be facing deportation. I mean, talk about high stakes.
Yeah, it's definitely attention grabbing, and it's a pretty calculated move on Mexico's part, especially with, you know, the new Trump administration and the expected changes to immigration policies.
Yeah, I mean, it's like straight out of a movie. They're calling it alert button. Pretty dramatic, right? But basically, if a migrant feels like they're about to be detained, they hit this button on their phone, and bam, alerts go out to their family and the nearest Mexican consulate.
It really shows how technology is being used now. I mean, it's about international relations, supporting citizens abroad. It's a wild time.
So how does it actually work? Is it some super complex tech, or more like I don't know, a digital smoke signal?
Haha. Well, it's definitely more than a smoke signal. We don't have all the details yet, but it's probably using GPS to find the user and the closest consulate. And then, some kind of secure messaging system to send the alerts. The big question is going to be about security and privacy for the users, especially for those who might not have, the proper documentation. That's something we'll have to look into as more information comes out.
For sure, and we'll be sure to put all those details in the show notes for everyone. But let's zoom out a bit. We know Mexico's expecting a spike in deportations with the new administration. How many people are we talking about here?
Millions, potentially. The Mexican government's estimates are around 11.5 million with some form of legal residency in the U.S., and then another 4.8 million who are undocumented. That's a huge number of people who could be impacted.
Wow, so this app could be a lifeline for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's not their only plan, right?
Oh, absolutely not. They're increasing their consular staff in the U.S., setting up 247 call centers. And they're working on making sure everyone has access to legal representation. They're really pulling out all the stops here.
It's a whole support system. Makes you wonder if it'll actually make it harder for the U.S. to deport people.
It could, yeah. The goal is to make sure Mexican citizens know their rights, can get a lawyer quickly, and have their consulate in the loop, all of which could definitely slow things down.
Right, and that consulate notification, that's not just a courtesy, it's a legal thing, right?
Exactly. It's international law. The U.S. has to notify consulates when a foreign citizen is detained. This app just makes sure that happens and that migrants aren't left without help.
It's like a digital safety net.
Hmm?
But could it also, I don't know, cause more friction between the U.S. and Mexico?
It might, especially given the history between Trump and Mexico's president on this whole issue. This app could be seen as Mexico stepping on the U.S.'s toes a bit.
And deportations have been a hot topic even with the Biden-Harris administration, haven't they? I mean, weren't they supposed to be more lenient?
You'd think so, but yeah, deportations actually went up. Over 271,000 in the 2024 fiscal year.
Wow, that's more than double what it was when Trump left office. Shows it's not a simple issue, no matter who's in charge.
Definitely adds another layer to all of this, especially with the app. Will it make the U.S. think twice? Or will it just become another way to document deportations? A lot to consider.
For sure. But let's look at the individuals who will actually be using the app. What will it mean for them?
I think the biggest impact, at least in the beginning, will be psychological. It's about having something to rely on, knowing you can get help. That can make a big difference when you're living with the fear of being deported.
It's like having a bit of control in a situation that feels out of control.
Exactly. And that feeling of control can change everything: how you live your life, how you interact with authorities, even how willing you are to speak up for yourself.
It's about going from feeling like a victim to feeling like you can stand up for yourself.
Exactly. And that shift can have a ripple effect on the whole community.
But looking ahead, do you think this app could actually change how the U.S. handles deportations?
It's possible, if it actually works to slow things down, make sure due process is followed. It might force the U.S. to change tactics, maybe even move towards a more humane approach.
Like technology pushing back against the system.
Yeah, kind of. It's about giving people more power in a system that can feel overwhelming.
And if it works here, could we see other countries doing the same thing?
It's a good question. There are a lot of factors. The political situation, how much each country supports migrant rights, but it's definitely possible.
It's like a glimpse into the future, where tech isn't just about control and surveillance, but about protecting people, especially the most vulnerable.
And it makes you think about what borders and citizenship really mean, and how technology will shape those things in the future.
A lot to unpack there. And we'll have links and resources in the show notes so you can dig deeper. You can learn more about the app, immigration policy, and how technology can help people fight back.
We've just scratched the surface, but hopefully we've got you thinking.
And if you want more deep dives into these kinds of topics, make sure to hit that subscribe button.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep questioning. And remember that anything is possible. We can't forget that for a lot of these migrants, deportation is a constant fear. This app, it's not a perfect solution, but it could help them feel a little safer. Like, they have some options.
So it's not just the legal stuff, it's emotional support too. It's about navigating this huge, complex system.
Exactly. Imagine the difference. Feeling totally hopeless versus knowing your family and your government have your back. That can change how you see everything.
It's true, knowledge is power, and this app is giving them that, plus a way to actually do something. Let's go back to the legal side for a minute. You mentioned the U.S. has to notify consulates when someone's detained. What does that actually look like, and how does this app help?
Okay, so under the Vienna Convention, the U.S. has to inform the consulate. That lets the consulate step in, help with legal stuff, translation, make sure they're treated fairly. The app basically does this automatically, sends the alert, the location. It could even record what's happening during the detention.
So it's like a record keeper, too. That could be huge for accountability.
Exactly. And when we talk about due process, we mean the government can't just grab people off the street. There are procedures, they have to have a reason, a chance to fight it. And this app helps make sure that happens by connecting them with lawyers and the consulate.
It's like a layer of protection.
Yeah.
But are there downsides? Could this backfire somehow?
That's a good question. One concern is that the U.S. could use it to track people. If it's collecting location data, well, law enforcement could get access to that and use it to find undocumented migrants.
That's a scary thought, the tool meant to protect them being used against them. It's like technology always has two sides.
It does, and it brings up some ethical questions about data privacy. Who can see this data? How is it stored? How do we know it won't be misused? Those are all things that will determine how much this app really helps.
It shows that technology is never neutral. It can be used for good or bad.
Absolutely, and we have to think about the whole context, too. The political situation, the power dynamics between the U.S. and Mexico, it's all connected.
It's like this app is a tiny version of the whole immigration debate.
Yeah, it's got everything: technology, international relations, ethics, human rights.
And it makes you wonder, if it works for Mexico, could other countries do this too?
Imagine every migrant having access to this kind of help. Could this be the future of how we protect people abroad?
It's a powerful idea, but it also makes you think. Could it make things even more unequal, where your rights depend on your country and whether you have this app?
It's complicated and no easy answers, but it's a conversation we need to have because technology is changing everything: how we move, how we live, and what it means to be a citizen in this global world.
So much to think about, but let's focus on right now. What do you think this app will mean for Mexican migrants in the U.S., like in the immediate future?
I think the biggest thing will be the psychological impact. Just having it, knowing you can get help if you need it, that could give people a sense of security, a feeling of control.
Yeah, like taking back some power in a situation that feels totally out of your hands.
Exactly, and that can change everything: how people go about their lives, how they deal with the authorities. They might be more willing to speak out against injustice.
It's about not feeling like a victim anymore.
Right, and that can spread, it can empower the whole community.
But what about the long game? Could this app actually change how the U.S. handles deportations in general?
Maybe if it really does slow things down, make sure everyone gets due process. The U.S. might have to rethink its approach, come up with new strategies, maybe even ones that are more humane, less focused on punishment.
Like technology forcing the system to change.
Yeah, in a way. It's about giving individuals more power against a system that's often too big and too powerful.
And if it works here, could we see it happening in other countries too? Like a global movement for migrant protection through technology?
That's an interesting thought. It depends on a lot of things: the politics of each country, their views on migration. But it's definitely something to consider.
It's like we're getting a glimpse of a different future, where tech isn't just about control, but about protecting people, especially those who need it most.
It really makes you question what it means to be a citizen in today's world, how technology shapes those ideas, and how we define borders.
We've covered a lot today, but don't worry, we've got links and resources in the show notes so you can explore this further. You can learn more about the app itself, about immigration policy, and the power of technology to fight back.
We've just scratched the surface here, but hopefully it sparks some ideas for you.
And if you want to hear more deep dives into these kinds of topics, hit that subscribe button. And join us next time as we explore more fascinating and unexpected stories.
Until then, keep learning, keep asking questions, and remember, the future is full of possibilities.